Bonjour et bienvenue. Thank you for clicking on this YouTube video. I'm Camden and today I'm going to be talking with you about all the different ways I have been able to teach English in France. So the first way I was able to teach English in France was through the program called TAPIF, the Teaching Assistant Program in France, which is for Americans and Canadians. It's organized through the French Embassy and the CIEP, which is the Centre International d'Études Pédagogiques, the International Center for Pedagogical Studies, and they not only help English assistants, but they find assistants for other languages as well. But to do this program, you have to fill out an application online. The requirements are that you have to have at least a bachelor's degree and have a decent level of French. You can either prove that by taking a test and submitting your test scores, or you can have a French teacher write a recommendation letter for you, which is what I did. And I was qualified because I majored in French during my undergrad studies. And I wanted to do TAPIF because I was interested in becoming a French teacher. But before I settled down to teach in the US, I wanted to spend a little bit more time in France, improve my accent and my speaking capabilities, and just enjoy the country and the culture and have a little bit of fun before I settled down with my teaching career. And I applied in October, which is when the applications open. The deadline is usually by January, and you find out in April if you get accepted or not. But there is a wait list, so sometimes people might not find out until June or July if they have a placement. And you basically get to rank which region you would prefer to teach in. I chose the region in the Académie de Besançon, which is in the east, close to Switzerland. I chose that region because I had ancestors who came from that region, and it was kind of a more lesser known, more rural region, and I really wanted a more French experience rather than living in a big city. And I really enjoyed my teaching experience with TAPIF. It was a 7-month program. You teach 12 hours per week, which is not a lot, and you only make about 800 euros after taxes per month, which is kind of hard. But if you choose a smaller region, then your school might have housing for you, the cost of living might be cheaper, and it's a little bit easier to manage your budget. I honestly didn't save that much during my TAPIF year, but I did really use that extra time to explore different hobbies that I wanted to try. I got more into yoga, running, I tried watercolor painting, but I also got to travel a lot. With TAPIF, you have all the school holidays, paid vacation. So I traveled to Chamonix in the Alps, and I went skiing. I went and visited some friends in Germany, a friend in Belgium. So it was really fun for me. And it's also great if you are interested in teaching, but you're not sure if you want to, because as an assistant, you get a taste of what teaching is like, but you're not in that main teacher role. It was a lot easier compared to my experience as a student teacher in the US. I worked in secondary schools, so in a middle school and a high school, and it depended on what the teachers expected of me. For the middle school, I taught all the lessons myself, but you only have groups of like 15 students max. And my teachers let me do that because I did have teaching experience. So I chose lessons about American culture, holidays, or I would collaborate with the teachers to plan a lesson related to what the students were learning. Sometimes I would help the terminale, or the senior students, prepare for their baccalaureate exam by helping them improve their speaking. Sometimes I would have small groups of students and we would play games or discuss like a certain topic. I know some of my students were learning about the 60s, the swinging 60s, and some were learning about heroes. So what is a hero? What do different heroes look like? Things like that. And I lived with other language assistants in my school's housing. I was pretty lucky. I only paid 80 euros a month, but that's not the case for all assistants. But I really enjoyed living in that little mini international community because we all got to practice our French together, and it was great fun. I didn't meet too many French people during my year because I lived in such a small city, but I did really enjoy working with the other teachers who were super welcoming, and they even invited me and the other English assistant to their homes for dinners. So that was a nice little taste of French culture and family. And yeah, so that was a really great experience. And then the second way I was able to teach English in France was when I was a student. So last year in Paris, I did an exchange program with Middlebury College. And on my student visa, I was allowed to work about 20 hours a week. I found a job at a private school this time working as an English assistant. This time it was only 10 hours a week, and they kind of worked with my schedule. So in this role, it was kind of different than where I worked in as a TPFIC assistant, because in this private school, I had like half the class. Most of the time I didn't have small groups, and I was preparing pretty much everything, my own lessons. So it was definitely a bigger teaching role at the private school, but I definitely had a lot of freedom. And in this school, the students' level of English was a lot higher, so it was quite an interesting experience working with the two different schools. And how I found this job at the private school is through networking. Networking is very important in France, so I worked with my faculty at my school where I was studying abroad. They were able to look for student jobs, and I was able to find this job through them. So definitely, if you're a student studying abroad in France, definitely check out any resources that your school might have for finding jobs. It's also really easy to get tutoring jobs in big cities like Paris. Finally, the third way I am teaching English in France is being a lectrice d'anglais. So this is quite different than being a teaching assistant, because a lectrice or a lecteur is kind of like a lecturer. So I work at a university in the south of France now. Again, a very different situation. I've been bouncing around France, the east to Paris, and now in the sunny south of France. And to get this job, the requirements are a little bit more competitive. For TAPIF, I needed a bachelor's degree, but for most lecteur and lectrice jobs, you need a master's degree. And there are less positions than assistantship positions, so it's more competitive. I applied for a couple of jobs around the Paris area, but I was accepted in the south of France because it was less competitive down here. And in this role, I am teaching my own classes, not just half the classes that I'm sharing with a different teacher. I'm preparing the curriculum. My smallest classes are around 15 students, and my biggest class is around 35, I would say. And I get to teach really interesting topics depending on what the department needs. I know some lecteurs and lectrices help engineering students. I'm in the human sciences and the lettres and sciences humaines department. So I teach for the English department, the langue étrangère appliquée, so students studying other foreign languages, and also a couple of classes for the history and geography departments, because for their majors they need to have a little bit of English so they can read different research articles. So I've been teaching classes that are more speaking focused and just conversation practice. I've been teaching for geography and history, I've been teaching a little bit of grammar, but then also incorporating some historical and geography-based activities with them as well. I'm helping teach a phonetics class, so focusing more on pronunciation. And I even picked up a translation class because they offered me some extra hours, and of course I wanted to make a little bit more money. And as a lecteur, or lectrice, you're only working like 300 or 400 hours a year, which of classes, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're teaching university classes, it does require a lot of prep work. There are meetings, that kind of thing, and also grading. As an assistant, I wasn't required to grade any of the students' work, but as a lectrice, I do have to grade the students, which is a big responsibility, but I'm excited to take it on because I did have a master's in teaching before I came to France as as an assistant. So being an assistant compared to student teacher was a lot easier, but now as a lectrice, I have more of that teaching responsibility role, which is pretty cool. I've only been a lectrice for about a month and I've been enjoying it so far. It's really nice to work with university students because you don't have as many discipline problems and you also get to explore deeper conversation topics rather than with younger kids when their level of English isn't really high, so you're teaching them the basics. I really like teaching both age groups. It's kind of hard to decide, but I've been enjoying being a lectrice so far. As a teaching assistant for the TAPIF program and as a lectrice, those two jobs did sponsor my visa as an American. At the private school in Paris, I was able to work through my student visa, but if I wanted to just apply for a job through a private school, I would have to have another way of getting a visa, or I'd have to find a private school that would sponsor my visa. So those are the ways I've been able to teach English in France. Usually for teaching assistant and lectrice jobs, you can only do those 2 years in a row. I was a TAPIF assistant for 1 year, I did my master's and worked as an assistant in a private school for 1 year, and I am a lectrice. Maybe I'll be a lectrice for 2 years, we'll find out. Thank you for watching my video. Please subscribe and let me know in the comments what other types of videos you would like to see, or if you have any questions about teaching English in France. Bisous and see you next time.